Lent is a time to walk in the way of Jesus, from where our lives are now all the way to Jerusalem. Sure, we want to get to Easter and the lilies and the chocolate bunnies and Christ the Lord is risen today. Lent will take us there. But first we have to go through the hosannas of arrival and the betrayals at the Last Supper and the betrayals in the garden and the betrayals in the trials. First, we have to get past, my God, why have you forsaken me? And the begging that they be allowed to bury their teacher's body with respect. We walk in the way of Jesus during Lent. And sure, we're headed for Easter. But we have to actually walk in the way of Jesus. And there's some pretty real stuff that is part of that way. Some pretty real stuff that we would rather skip over or walk past looking at the other side of the street. And yet, if we learned anything in this pandemic, skipping over the real stuff, walking past reality because we don't like what we're seeing, is going to get us into a heap of trouble. So when we hear the reading from Exodus, it doesn't take very long before we know where we are. The Ten Commandments. What we say to ourselves? A quick check. Nope. No murder, no stealing, no false witness, honored father and mother just last night. I am so good. And we skip over the tiny bit of coveting we did last Thursday while in line at Market Basket. And we skip the catching up on stuff at the office that we did on Sunday afternoon. Because what's a little coveting? What's a little dent in the Sabbath? Everyone covets a little bit, or the advertising industry would have disappeared long ago. And churchgoers keep Sabbath way better than everybody else. And getting to the coveting and the killing and the bearing false witness, have we walked right past a piece of reality that changes everything that comes after? The reading today begins, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of slavery, out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. God saw us in the house of slavery, and God brought us to freedom. God's saving actions have drawn the people of God into a new orbit of life and blessing. After hearing our cries, after freeing us and leading us through the wilderness, God said, here, let me make it clear what living in my zone of liberation means. Because the Lord is your God, the Ten Commandments say. You are free not to need any other gods. You are free to rest on the seventh day, free from tyranny of lifeless idols, free from murder, stealing, and covetousness as ways to establish yourself on the land. That much love that we have been offered from freedom from what enslaves us. That much love, that we have been brought through a wilderness to a promised land. That much love, that God is with us still. And we don't even notice it. We keep on with all the human things, the small-scale coveting, the commitment to constantly producing as if we were still working for Pharaoh back in Egypt. We keep on with the things that pull us away from God just a little bit. While the whole time God is saying, trust me. All those little human things that you think don't matter, they are not good for you. The life you think they bring you is not real life. God is calling us to live a real life with so much freedom, setting out guidelines that we can have that freedom in abundance. And instead, we keep dragging ourselves away to serve Pharaoh's production quotas and miserable resource management skills. Why? Because we're worshiping idols. Not, the golden calf kind of idol, because we've caught on to where we go when we go there. But this kind of idol that says, I can predict how someone else is going to rip me off, so I am going to get what's due to me in advance. The kind of idol that says, I can predict how much that other person loves me, so I'm going to love them exactly the same amount and no more. The kind of idol that says, I can predict what God is going to do, so I'm going to make some judgments just the way God would. We worship idols for our own convenience, our own egos, our own satisfaction. We worship idols so we don't have to accept the freedom we've been given. We worship idols so we don't have to notice the love that surrounds us. We worship idols so we don't have to live in the real world. When we live in the real world, we get to experience a God that can't be tied down to one image. God is not constrained by some earthly magic to only be present when certain words are spoken by certain people in a certain room. When we live in the real world, we meet not a general purpose in theory kind of God, but a specific God. The God that saw me personally enslaved to an eating disorder and is walking with me still in the wilderness. When we live in the real world, God gets personal and real. And our relationship with God gets personal and real. And the things that we would rather skip over or ignore as we pass them by become too precious to ignore. Because if we are living in the real world this Lent, the real world is where God really saved us from real slavery in our lives, then we are going to be surrounded by the images of God. God can't be limited. Instead, God is present in the crazy diversity of humanity, where every specific individual and every particular life carries the divine spark. When we skip ahead, when we ignore that to get to the good part, we're missing the real part, the best part of walking in the way. No matter how challenging that real part is. So this Lent, let us walk with Jesus. Yes, absolutely. Let's walk into Easter. But let us walk through the real and hard parts deliberately, so that we can catch a glimpse of the love that surrounds us even when life is beyond challenging. God freed us from slavery to do just that. Amen.